hash, the whispers of Hollow Creek. It was supposed to be a simple weekend getaway. That's what Sarah kept telling herself. As she drove down the winding country road, the GPS signal fading in and out, the rental listing had seemed perfect. A secluded cabin by a creek, no neighbors for miles, and most importantly, no cell reception. Just what she needed to finish her novel. The sun was setting when Sarah finally spotted the small dirt road leading to the property. Tall pines cast long shadows across her path as she navigated the uneven terrain. The cabin appeared in a small clearing, weathered wood, a stone chimney, and a small porch with a rocking chair gently swaying in the breeze. Sarah frowned. She didn't remember reading about a rocking chair in the listing, and it shouldn't be moving without wind, just the air currents, she muttered to herself, grabbing her suitcase from the trunk. The key was exactly where the owner said it would be, under a stone frog by the porch steps. The door creaked open, revealing a cozy interior that smelled of pine and something else, something older and mustier, like wet earth after rain. Sarah quickly settled in, unpacking her laptop and notes on the small wooden table by the window overlooking Hollow Creek. According to local stories, the creek had earned its name from the peculiar echoing quality of the water flowing over the rocks. Sometimes people claimed it sounded like whispers. By midnight, Sarah had written more than she had in weeks. The isolation was working. As she prepared for bed, she noticed the temperature had dropped considerably. She stoked the fireplace and wrapped herself in a blanket, listening to the soft crackling of burning wood. That's when she heard it, a faint sound coming from outside, barely audible over the fire. It sounded like someone calling a name, though not hers. Sarah approached the window cautiously, peering into the darkness. The moon cast enough light to see the creek and the trees beyond, but nothing else seemed out of place. Just the water, she reassured herself, just like the locals said, the hollow sound of the creek. Yet as she lay in bed that night, the whispers continued, becoming more distinct as the hours passed. They seemed to form words now, though Sarah couldn't quite make them out. She pulled the pillow over her head and eventually drifted into an uneasy sleep. The morning brought fog and a subtle sense of disorientation. Sarah found herself standing by the creek, with no memory of having walked outside. The water burbled over smooth stones, innocent and ordinary in the daylight. She shivered, noticing her bare feet were wet with dew. Had she sleepwalked? It had never happened before. Back in the cabin, Sarah found her laptop open, though she was certain she'd closed it before bed. On the screen was her document, but with a new paragraph she didn't remember writing. They never leave once they arrive. The creek calls them back, again and again. Sarah stared at the words, a chill running down her spine that had nothing to do with the morning air. She deleted the paragraph and made a fresh pot of coffee, determined to shake off the unsettling feeling. Throughout the day, she worked diligently, though she found her gaze repeatedly drawn to the window, to the creek beyond. The words flowed easily, too easily, perhaps, as if they were being whispered directly into her mind. By evening, she had completed 3 chapters, more than she typically wrote in a week. As darkness fell once more, Sarah decided to explore the property a bit. She grabbed a flashlight and walked along the edge of the creek, following it downstream. About a quarter mile from the cabin, she discovered something strange, an old stone foundation, partially reclaimed by nature. It appeared to have been a small structure once, perhaps another cabin. In the center of the foundation sat a well, its stone rim crumbling but still intact. Sarah approached cautiously, shining her light into its depths. The beam couldn't reach the bottom, but she could hear water, not the flowing sound of the creek, but occasional drips echoing in the darkness below. A sudden rustling in the nearby bushes startled her. Sarah swung the flashlight around, heart pounding, but saw nothing. The wind perhaps, or a small animal. Yet as she turned to head back to the cabin, She could have sworn she heard someone whisper her name. That night, the dreams came. Sarah found herself standing by the well, but it was daylight, and the foundation supported a complete cabin, newer, inhabited. A woman stood at a wash basin, her back to Sarah. When she turned, Sarah gasped. The woman's face was her own, but the clothes were from another century. Sarah woke with a start, sweating despite the chill in the room. The fire had died down to embers. She reached for her phone to check the time, forgetting momentarily about the lack of reception. To her surprise, the screen lit up, showing 1 bar of service. There was a notification, a text message from an unknown number. Don't listen to the creak. A cold dread settled in her stomach. This had to be some kind of joke. Perhaps the property owner was playing a prank, but how would they have gotten her number? Sarah hadn't shared it with them. She deleted the message and tried to go back to sleep, but the whispers from the creek seemed louder now, more insistent. Around 3 a.m., unable to rest, she got up to make tea. As she waited for the kettle, she noticed her reflection in the window over the sink, except she wasn't moving, though she was certain she had raised her hand. The reflection smiled, a slow, unnatural stretching of lips, while Sarah remained frozen in terror. The kettle's whistle broke the moment. Sarah blinked, and her reflection was normal again, mimicking her movements as it should. Had she imagined it? Lack of sleep could cause hallucinations. She knew that much. By morning, exhaustion had left Sarah with a dull headache and frayed nerves. She seriously considered packing up and leaving, but something held her back. Her novel was progressing so well here. Whatever strangeness she was experiencing, it was feeding her creativity. She decided to stay 1 more night. That afternoon, while taking a break from writing, Sarah found an old journal tucked behind some books on a shelf. It appeared to be a diary. The ink faded, but still legible in places. The entries were dated 1887, written by a woman named Elizabeth Harper. The early entries described Elizabeth's delight with her new home by the creek, but as Sarah turned the pages, the tone changed. Elizabeth wrote of whispers in the night, of seeing her reflection move independently, of waking by the creek, with no memory of having gone there. In the final entry, Elizabeth wrote, "I understand now. The creek doesn't just whisper, it hungers. It takes a piece of you each time, replacing it with something else, something older. I fear I am not entirely myself anymore. If you are reading this, leave this place. Leave before." The entry ended abruptly, as if the writer had been interrupted. Sarah closed the journal with trembling hands. The parallels to her own experience were too specific to dismiss. She began to pack her belongings. Her novel be damned. As she was loading her car, a movement caught her eye. Someone standing at the edge of the trees. An old woman, her gray hair loose around her shoulders, wearing what looked like a nightgown. She was too far away for Sarah to make out her features clearly. "Hello," Sarah called out. "Can I help you?" The figure didn't respond but turned slowly and walked into the woods in the direction of the old foundation and well. Against her better judgment, Sarah followed. By the time she reached the stone foundation, the sun was setting, painting the sky in vivid oranges and purples. The old woman was nowhere to be seen. Sarah approached the well cautiously, an unexplainable dread building inside her. She peered over the edge, into the darkness below. For a moment there was only silence, then a whisper echoed up from the depths, her own voice, saying her name. Something moved in the reflection of the water far below, a face looking up at her that was both her own and not her own. It smiled that same unnatural smile she had seen in the window. Sarah stumbled backward, away from the well, only to trip over an exposed root. As she fell, her head struck one of the foundation stones with a sickening crack. When she came to, the world was bathed in moonlight. Sarah found herself back in the cabin, sitting at her laptop. On the screen was her novel, completed to the last page. She had no memory of writing the ending, but it was there in black and white, her protagonist discovering she had been dead all along, trapped in a cycle of reliving her final days. With growing horror, Sarah realized she couldn't feel the keys beneath her fingers as she tried to close the laptop. Her hands passed through the solid surface as if it were mist. She rushed to the bathroom, but the mirror showed only the empty room behind her. In the distance, she could hear the whispers from the creek growing louder, forming words now clear as day. "Welcome home, Sarah. Welcome home." Outside, the rocking chair on the porch began to sway gently, though there was no wind. And inside, a new rental listing was being created on a laptop. Charming, secluded cabin by Hollow Creek, perfect for writers seeking inspiration. No cell reception. Previous tenant left behind a completed novel manuscript. A ghost story, ironically enough, available immediately.